Hello and welcome on this week's episode. This week we're going to talk about a little dog named Dory who had been limping on her hind leg for a few weeks and the owners had no idea why. We're going to find out what was wrong and we're going to look at how I got Dory up and running again. When poor Dory was brought in, it was pretty obvious that she was in a lot of pain and she was not able to use her back leg. She was constantly falling over and very reluctant to walk. On clinical examination, I quickly noticed that there was a popping feeling, an instability coming from the knee joint, and thus a cruciate ligament rupture was quickly suspected. Obviously, we needed to confirm this diagnosis, so it was decided to make some X-rays. Luckily, Dory really behaved and making the X-rays was nice and easy. Here on the X-ray you can see that cruciate ligament that is keeping the lower leg from moving back and forward. And in a normal knee you will see the green arrows lining up. The lower and the upper leg line up perfectly. When the cruciate ligament ruptures, you can see on the right hand side that the lower part of the leg has moved forward, causing a dislocation within the knee joint with a lot of pressure on the back of the knee and the back of the menisc. And this pressure can cause the menisc to rupture or tear, which will lead to a very chronically painful and eventually possibly unusable knee joint. So once I had a sure diagnosis, I went back to the owners and explained to them what that means. We discussed all possible treatment options because there is quite a few possibilities to restabilize a knee joint like this, and depending on size of the dog, the owner's willingness to take risks, the owner's willingness to spend money, we have to decide on which approach works best for this particular case. And in Dory's case, it was decided to go for a lateral stabilization, which is the simpler, more cost-effective method that works really well in smaller dogs. After the normal shaving washing, we were ready for surgery. We make a small incision on the side of the knee and then we use a small drill to drill a tiny hole in the lower leg. This hole will allow me to guide the wire through the lower leg, and then we will loop the wire to the back of the knee joint and make it really tight, pulling the lower leg back in, undoing that instability and undoing that dislocation of the knee joint. And the wire actually looks like a glorified fishing wire, a very thick fishing wire, and it's actually a similar material that is being used for that. It's a nylon wire designed specifically for this purpose, and it comes with a small metal crimp that allows us to knot the wire together. So instead of using a normal surgical knot, which would be way too bulky, I would have to do 3 or 4 overhand knots and that would leave a very big knot irritating under the skin. We actually use a small metal tube through which both ends are guided, and then the metal tube is crimped flat to squeeze onto the wire, holding the wire under tension and in place. So here you can see me using a special forceps to really create tension, and we're tensioning the wire very tight, and then we use these very bulky pliers to squeeze the metal tube onto the wire, and that makes sure that it is completely immobilized and that the wire stays in place under tension, restabilizing the knee joint. It's a somewhat older technique that has been around for decades, but it still works really well in small dogs and is really cost effective, which most people will appreciate. On top of that, The post-op risks for this procedure are almost non-existing, and we have been getting amazing results by doing this. The excess wire is cut, and here you can clearly see where we crimped the tube, keeping the wire in place. Everything is cleaned up, antibiotics are put inside, and we can see the antibiotics going in, and the wound is closed with absorbable sutures. So this surgery again went really smooth, and the dog made a really good recovery. It's a day surgery, so Dory went home actually the same day. This is her after she woke up in the afternoon, and her owners came to pick her up. You will see that after surgery, of course, she is still quite painful. She's limping worse than before, but that is to be expected. We expect these dogs to not be putting the leg down for at least 7 days. There is a lot of tension that we put on this wire that pulls it back, and over time that loosens up a little bit, and you can see that she's really struggling to walk. But that is until actually she sees her owner walking in, and that's the moment when she forgets anything ever happened. She wobbles to her mommy, and everything seems better already. We got to see her again after 12 days of surgery. Here is some video that the owner sent me. The owners were actually a little bit concerned during the first couple of days because she was really uncomfortable. Had to explain to them that that is completely normal. And then 12 days later, she came in for her stitches removal. The wound had healed really nicely. Everything was nice and dry. Here you can see her limping before surgery, and then here you can see that 12 days after, she's already putting significantly more weight on the operated leg, and that is exactly where we want to be. We hope that in another 10 to 12 days she'll actually be almost back to normal, and that would be considered a fair recovery. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that and that you actually learned something from it. I would like to raise a little bit of awareness for this problem, as it is something that is so common and so often misdiagnosed and left for an extended period of time before they actually get diagnosed and treated, and that unfortunately dramatically affects the long-term prognosis of this. The longer you wait, the more chances you have of actually causing damage to the internal structures of the knee joint. And then even with the best of surgeries, if you have significant damage to those meniscs, the long-term results unfortunately tend to be not that good. So if your dog is limping on its back leg, remember this video and ask your vet about the possibility of a cruciate ligament. Of course, this week I went climbing again, and unfortunately for me, I had to get a new pair of climbing shoes. Climbing shoes tend to be really painful because we downsize them. We buy them 1 or 2 sizes too small. I actually bought a 41 where my normal shoe size is 43. So downsize to full sizes, and this forces your feet to get squeezed into the shoe, making it very tight. This is painful, but it allows you to stand on the smallest of edges, and that really helps during climbing. Getting these new shoes on when the rubber is still really stiff is really painful. We actually use plastic bags to allow us to glide into the shoe, because without the plastic bag I wouldn't even be able to put them on. Walking on these new shoes is really painful and uncomfortable, and luckily, after a few sessions, the shoes will actually stretch a little bit and become a little bit more comfortable. And they tend to last from anything from 4 to 6 months. So we only have to go through this pain once or twice a year, which, come to think of it, is not that bad and worth every bit of suffering. So aside from the climbing shoes, the only thing we really need in bouldering is a bit of chalk. This is magnesium powder that we use in order to try and prevent us from slipping off the holes. the magnesium powder dries up your hands and really increases the grip. The holes are actually made of a sandpaper-like structure that really helps gripping and prevents slipping. Unfortunately, this can become rather painful and your fingertips will eventually run out of skin, possibly making them bleed, and that is usually the reason why I have to end the session for the night, because I just don't have any more skin on my fingertips. And here you can see what my fingertips looked like on that particular evening. Pretty raw and painful, but I guess again, worth it or not. I let you decide. Alright guys, that's a wrap for this week. Me and Puss really enjoyed the video and we'll be back next week with more. There is some really cool cases lined up. There's a really cute kitten. There is a turtle that we're gonna have a look at. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, and see you again next week. Bye bye.